Okay, so let's see what adventure Ken and Ryu went on in Street Fighter this time. Ryu had just traveled to America to visit Ken. For whatever reason, they decided to go out to a bar and got in a fight with a bunch of members of the Air Force. And of course, Captain Guile shows up. And that's where our adventure begins. So Guile shows up and sees all of his men just laid out in this bar. Ryu and Ken was basically starting to take all these guys' women, so of course a fight breaks out. So Ryu steps up to Guile looking for a fight. I apologize, by the way, it's Sergeant Guile, not Captain. Ryu's not able to land a shot on Guile. He even throws himself into a table for some reason. Like, they've been fighting for like 20 seconds and Ryu is already exhausted. Then Guile's just had enough and just lays Ryu out. But he's not staying down, he gets back to his feet, and Guile is pretty much emptying the super meter on Ryu at this point. He even slammed him into a wall, like this is bad.
Thanks for this, you little jerk!
He even hits him with a flashlight. So Guile asks Ken, like, why is he just sitting back and watching Ryu get beat up like this? I guess Ken's just gonna let him fight one-on-one. That's the excuse he gives him. And was, God, his face is swole already. They had to have only been fighting for like less than 5 minutes. Guile's just tired of using him as a punching bag, so they just leave at this point. And Ryu collapses. So Ken takes Ryu back home and I guess decides to treat his wounds because he desperately needs some help. He probably needs to go to a hospital at this point. Also, Ken's a dick, by the way. He knows how beat up Ryu is and he's still speeding on a motorcycle with him on the back of it, just hanging on. So Ken gets the itch the next day to try to go ahead and fight Guile. Once again, seeing what happened the night before, I don't know why you would do this, but whatever. He's just hard-headed. We get this wonderful interlude as usual. So now Ken's decided to ride up to the Air Force base to start a fight with Guile. Has he lost his mind? Like, does he understand how the US military works? So Ken just casually just pulls up and asks for Guile, like he's just in school or something. Of course, his name's not on the list. I don't know why he thought this was about to work. But never mind, Ken's rich, so he just makes a phone call and they just let him right on. What does his dad do? Because that's never actually disclosed, but how does he have connections like this to where Ken can just get military access? They literally run and salute to Ken to let him on base. Like, that's crazy. He's just still a civilian. Anyways, so Ken starts flirting with this random woman on base to try to get intel about Guile. In the midst of trying to start a fight with Guile, he just gets a date out of this. Shoot or shoot. Cut to Guile, who's hungover and exhausted from the fight with Ryu last night. I don't know how the fight messed him up that much considering that Ryu barely got any shots in. Anyways, Ken finds a newspaper article about Guile winning some type of martial arts championship. His new girl basically lets him know that he just transferred here and immediately won the martial arts tournament, so not much is known about Guile on the base. Cut to this weird super 80s gym montage, where I could be wrong because the actual footage that I'm using is pretty dated and bad, but I think Akuma's randomly in this gym. Guile can't even work out, he's still exhausted from the night before. And what do you know, he runs into Ken anyways. So now we're gonna get a fight at an actual environment that looks pretty close to Guile's Street Fighter 2 stage, it's just missing a plane in the back. But Ken goes to fight Guile, who's obviously not at 100% right now. Once again, I don't really know why. It's not like Ryu got a lot of hits in on Guile, but whatever. Guile throws sand in Ken's eyes, and it's all downhill from there. So we just cut to the aftermath of the fight, which doesn't look very good. Ken was expecting a fair fight. I don't know why you would think just running up to somebody on their job and they're just gonna have this polite sparring match with you. So we now cut to Ken, who looks like he's on his deathbed at this point. Both Ken and Ryu look like they've just been in Rocky fights these last 2 days. He was actually beat so bad the girl he was talking to on base left him flowers and a note like he just died. So now this beating from Guile has made Ken reflect on the fact that they basically just train all the time and they don't really compete or get stronger as fighters. And they also realize there's a lot of styles of martial arts that they've never been exposed to. So this little adventure, or these pair of beatings from Guile, have actually inspired these two to start to travel to learn about different forms of martial arts. And this is where the adventure of our show starts. And so now we cut to Ken and Ryu traveling to Hong Kong. And that's the end of the show. So if there's any lesson in this episode of Street Fighter, it's don't go on base looking to fight anybody. Like, that's stupid. Also, apparently on the next episode, they're exposed to 16-year-old tour guide Chun-Li. What is this show?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Select and make your first pick. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Choose and pick the best one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Select.